What is going on, YouTube? It is your boy Faithful to God, and I just wanted to take a moment out to talk a little bit about a internet troll by the name of Mr Natzarah. I just had a conversation with this guy. If all of you who have, who are subscribed to my channel, who have been watching over the past week or so, know that I made a video calling out certain individuals from the Hebrew Israelite community to engage in a debate. More specifically, it was one Westers and, to a lesser degree, Mr Natzarah, who is not a one Wester, but holds to their fraudulent Hebrew dialect. He just has a remixed version of their fraudulent dialect. So I wanted to have a debate with him. I called him out. I talked with Sal Showtime to see if we could set something up. We just finished having you could almost say like a conference, back and forth, whatever, on Facebook in, private message. And at first I was thinking, this dude is, he's trollish. I mean, I'm already kind of expecting some of the stuff that he was going to say. And, I'm kind of, taking little digs back and everything like that. But I didn't think that the dude would be as trollish as he was. It's like he doesn't want to agree to a specific title. So the initial title of the debate was going to be something to the effect of, is the Hebrew promoted by Torah Knights and One Westers ancient Hebrew? So basically, our debate was going to be on the topic of the fraudulent Hebrew dialect, which is called by the One Westers Lashawan Qadash. Now, granted, Mr Natzarah and his group do not call it Lashawan Qadash, but that dialect, the one where they claim, there's only like two vowel sounds, which is a and an I for the ayin, so a and I, so it's like ah, ba, ga, da, all that. Well, we were supposed to have a debate on that specific dialect. Now, for whatever reason, he didn't want to agree to that title. He wanted to come up with some wacky, something like, do Israelites speak Hebrew, or do Christians speak Hebrew, or something to that effect, which is a ridiculous title. Truth be told, the whole reason why I wanted to have the discussion in the first place is because I wanted him to prove the claim for that fraudulent dialect. In other words, to prove the claim that that so-called Hebrew is in fact ancient Hebrew or Paleo Hebrew. That was the whole purpose of us having the debate. Since the burden of proof ultimately lies on him, and it doesn't lie on us to, quote unquote, I don't know where he gets this idea that somehow we have to disprove the validity of the dialect, when in all actuality the burden of proof lies on him to prove that that dialect is in fact Paleo Hebrew. So what I'm planning on doing is having a debate with somebody more reasonable, because I think that Mr Natzarah is incapable of having a reasonable debate with somebody. I mean, this is a guy who, for all intents and purposes, is known for being the troll that he is. And I kind of wanted to give him a chance to shed that label, to have people look at him in a different light, to actually present an intelligent argument for that fraudulent Hebrew dialect, which I continually say it over and over. It is a fraudulent, fake, absolutely pseudo Hebrew dialect. It is not ancient Hebrew. But I was hoping that at least he would try. He would at least try to present something to try to validate it. But of course, he wanted to argue some old nonsensical. I mean, he wanted to go in like all these crazy directions. So at the end of the day, I decided, truth be told, I decided that, you know what, I'm not even going to have this debate, because this is ridiculous. This guy has no idea what he's talking about. Dude is just off his rocker. Point blank. I just think that the guy is not all there. And, I'm actually making this video two-folded. I would hope that if there are Lashawan Qadash, or, if, anybody's listening to this and they don't prefer that title or whatever, that name, anybody who holds to that belief, that the Lashawan Qadash proponents hold to, that there's only two vowel sounds, that modern Hebrew is somehow Yiddish, which is probably the most ridiculous and easily debunkable argument there is, seeing as modern Hebrew, modern Israeli Hebrew, and Yiddish are in fact two different languages. So anybody who uses the argument that modern Hebrew is Yiddish has no idea what they're talking about. They don't have any business having any sort of a dialogue on the Hebrew language, on its history. So at the end of the day, I would like to have a dialogue, or rather a formatted debate, with any Lashawan Qadash proponents. That would be your ISUPK members, GMS, that would be AOC, that would be any of the groups that derive their teachings from One West who continue to use the dialect that Ariyah made up. And yes, Ariyah is the founder of that dialect. That dialect is not ancient Hebrew. It is Ariyah's own concoction. He made that up. Ironically enough, Judah Natzarah simply took the dialect from wherever he got it, more than likely watching an internet video, remixed it, decided he would take out certain points that he clearly couldn't argue for, like the argument that Sadeh is pronounced Taza, which he, I think, realized that, yeah, that's a ridiculous argument. I'm just surprised he didn't see that the entire dialect that he's promoting is a ridiculous argument, but needless to say. Unfortunately, he is incapable of having an intelligent discourse on that specific topic. So I would preferably like to have this with somebody who is very much willing to sit down and go over it. And the reason why I believe this topic is important is for a variety of reasons. Number one, the ones that promote that dialect are usually sacred namers. And so they have this belief that if you don't say God's name in a specific pronunciation, you won't be saved. In fact, I saw a video where even Judah Natzarah did it himself with vocab alone, where he kept saying, say Yahweh Akkad, and the dialect that he's using is fraudulent. I mean, who's going to agree with that dialect? It's a fraudulent dialect. In fact, if I were to propose to him to prove to me in the form of an ancient transliteration that YHWH is pronounced Yahweh, a transliteration made by the Israelites into a different language, which incorporates the vowel sounds, he would not be able to provide that because there is no evidence that God's name is Yahweh. There is no evidence whatsoever for that pronunciation. And if I were to ask him to provide me for a pronunciation, he wouldn't be able to find it. But ironically enough, we actually do have evidence from antiquity for the pronunciation of Yahweh. Isn't that interesting? But again, I noticed that he tried to catch up vocab with that sort of argumentation, where he tried to say, well, say Yahweh Akkad, Yahweh Akkad. Just looking ridiculous. And it's because they use that dialect as almost like a dagger. If somebody doesn't know their arguments, they use that as a dagger to try to beguile or even belittle people until they encounter someone who knows the argument, who understands how faulty it is, and actually knows where the dialect really stems from, which is Ariyah. But I guess he doesn't want to get into that. He didn't want me to somehow. He didn't want to have He didn't want the name One West in the title because somehow, why are you always incorporating One West? You're obsessed with One West. And meanwhile, this is a guy who took his dialect from the One Westers. That dialect isn't original to Judah Natzarah. That's actually a dialect that derives totally from the One West movement. That is their dialect. It's not ancient Hebrew. It is their dialect. So at the end of the day, this offer is extended to anybody who promotes that fraudulent dialect. So this would be your Sakaris, your AOCs, your GOCCs, anybody who promotes that fake Hebrew. I would like to have a debate with you on Debate Talk for You. We can have it preferably sometime in February so that we can go over the actual history of Hebrew, so we can go through transliterations, and then perhaps maybe those of you who promote that fake Hebrew can actually try to validate the dialect by showing it in the form of, again, transliterations. For example, you could try to show me in the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Greek scrolls where the transliterations for that fake dialect are. Why are they absent? Or for example, we could go ahead and look at some of the early church writings to see how the Jews would have pronounced certain things, since we actually do have certain pronunciations which are preserved there. We could look at the Septuagint. We could look at different things. There's a variety of things that we can look at that will discredit that fake Hebrew. And furthermore, and I say this only for the ones that hold to Lashawan Qadash. This is not right now being centered or directed at anybody from Torah Knights or Judah Natzarah. This is specifically for the One Westers. I want anybody who holds to that fake dialect to prove to me definitively that the Hebrew letter Sade is pronounced Taza. Anybody who holds to that dialect, I want you to prove that to me definitively in a debate on the dialect, because that'll be one of the questions that I will ask you. And again, the reason why I'm doing this is because you have proponents of that language, of that fake dialect, who will use it as a dagger against those who don't hold to the dialect. And in fact, will tell you that if you don't use their pronunciation specifically of God, the Father, and Jesus Christ, that somehow you're not going to be saved if they hold to the New Testament. And if they're Torah-based, then they'll put the emphasis on you have to say Yahweh, 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 even though they can't prove that that's exactly how the Father's name is pronounced, because there is no evidence for that pronunciation. There is none. So anyways, man, I'm just making this quick video to, point that out. Furthermore, I also wanted to point out the fact that sometime this week or next week, I'm going to get together with a fellow brother, and we're going to make a probably like a 6-part series of individual hangouts to refute Lashawan Qadash. We're going to go through the history of the dialect. We're going to go through the different groups that splintered off from the original One West school who still retain the dialect. We're going to go through the arguments that they make for the dialect. We're going to show how the dialect has no evidence, how there are transliterations that completely destroy the arguments made by Lashawan Qadash proponents. We're going to show how groups like the Torah Knights, specifically Judah Natzarah, remixed the dialect, took it, basically didn't give any credit, and now they're trying to claim it as some revelation. Oh, like Judah Natzarah says, oh, I learned this by reading the Torah. But truth be told, that dialect doesn't appear in Torah. It's foreign to Torah. So we're going to go through just the history, the common objections, and I'm sure that anybody who has encountered, again, groups like Sakari, GMS, ISUPK, are probably familiar. Anytime you hear them say Yahawashai, that would be Lashawan Qadash, which is ironic because when we look at the New Testament, specifically in the Greek text, and we look at the transliterations of specific phrases and words and expressions used, one is going to discover that Christ himself didn't speak the dialect that Lashawan Qadash proponents claim he spoke. Which is weird if you think about it, because if he had a quote-unquote Lashawan Qadash name, why didn't he speak the dialect? So we're going to bring that out. Hopefully, the rest of y'all will get a chance to see the folly and the line of argumentation used by the different camps, by the different groups. And yeah, man, that's all I got to say. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a debate going with Judah Natzarah because he's too unreasonable. And anybody listening to this, if they would like to have a debate with me, feel free to message me. You can go to my channel in the About section. You can send me a message there, or you can find me at Facebook. My Facebook is connected to my YouTube channel, so you can send me a message there. We can set it up if you are, in fact, a Lashawan Qadash proponent. So with that being said, man, that's all I got to say. Thank everybody who's watching this now and who will watch this later. And again, if you're a proponent of that dialect, hit me up. And until next time, God bless.